Which of these stories will you be whacking to tomorrow? Sense 8 on X Hamster? Booty Call, the browser game where your job is to get women to have sex with you. Sounds like all of our jobs. A sexual journal shows that video game players have better sex and they're better in bed. So who's better, Overwatch teams or League of Legends players? And finally, I'm just going to leave this here for you. Death by anal sex. This is Clickbait Countdown.
Clickbait.
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 Clickbait. Clickbait.
Clickbait.
Clickbait.
All right, this is Clickbait Countdown, the show where we find things to make you go click, 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 usually in the middle of the night to give us as many hits as possible. I am Jay LaRock, and I'm here with my boy Randy. What is up, my friend?
What's up, player? It's been a while.
It has been, but you know, we've proven with this show that you guys know, we know what you guys want. And you like the clickbait, man, because you guys are making this our number one show. It's this and the World of Warplane videos. I'm having a little battle of ratings with Ignacio.
We gotta beat Ignacio.
So we came up with these new stories. So basically how this works is in gaming, outside gaming, we take usually 3 to 4 stories and we put them in a countdown. They're not always arranged by best to worst or anything like that, but it's a countdown of some of the crazy stuff that we saw over the last time we had this show, which could be a couple of weeks. It could be a month. We don't know. It depends on how crazy our lives are. So we start this show with our number 4 story, which is Sense 8. If you guys don't know what that is a show that was created by the Wachowskis, and you could you still can find it on Netflix, even though it was canceled. And it's basically about 8 strangers who become connected through like a mental connection. It's kind of like a psychic thing. But then they find out they're being hunted, and there's all types of different sexual themes in it, and not your normal sexual themes either. So it's a really interesting show, and a lot of people liked it. And when it got canceled, people were like, oh, come on, Netflix. You have all these shows on here that they consider terrible, yet Sense8 gets the boot. Now, even though they did say just a little while ago that they are going to do like a 2-hour finale to wrap up the story, there is a group who has come forward asking to take over the show so they can continue producing it. And it comes from kind of a unlikely source. Obviously, there's been all types of campaigns to try to get shows back on the air. There's also been campaigns where people are trying to buy shows so they can continue running it. Most of the time, these are fans that don't have a lot of money. Maybe they're trying to do a Kickstarter. This, however, comes from, like I said, an abnormal place, X Hamster, which if you don't know what that is the porn tube site where you can find all types of porn, basically for free. And they have a lot of users. Now, this wasn't just some user. That'd be funny enough if it was an X Hamster user. No, this was sent to the Wachowskis by the vice president of X Hamster. And this is basically what he said. He said that we read recently that you're working on the 3rd season of Sense8 to fight the fact that Netflix has no plans to renew the series. And he's asking to bring it on to X Hamster. And he's saying that, he understands that it's controversial, but he says that X Hamster is currently one of the most trafficked websites on the internet, which is true. I actually looked up the data. He says we have more visitors daily than the New York Times, ESPN, or the Daily Mail. And he's basically saying that we have the revenue, we have the people, and we want to buy the show. Now, I haven't been able to follow up to see if they got any response yet, but this guy's serious, and this was only published maybe like a month or so ago as of this broadcast. And it's not just funny because, we can just laugh at the fact that this is a porn company, but I think it's interesting because imagine if you could end up having shows like this, because the Playboy channel had and still has shows. Like they have a reality show, like imagine Big Brother, but they actually show everything. They have shows like that, and they're becoming more and more popular. So since you have things like Amazon Prime, you have Netflix, you have Hulu, you have CBS All Access, you have all these different places to do stuff. why not one of these porn sites that have all these people watching? I could be surprised that you could eventually see targeted shows go to places like this where millions of people are coming in every day and looking at it. And to me, another part about it is when you read the comment section, most of these people are watching porn. So their avatars can be penises and breasts and vaginas. So it's funny. People be talking so seriously about the show, like, oh, please, X-Hamster, do all you can to bring this marvelous city home. And the username is horny cock, and it's a picture of a big erect penis. So it's just like, know your fan base. I just thought that was just great.
It's funny to see how, like, you'll have these places like that, try and pick up these shows that, like, like you said, it's interesting that Sense8 got canceled when they do have a bunch of other shows that are on their, like, roster that are, like, not so great. And yeah, like, I'm one of those, like, I wonder if they will pick it up, and if they do, it would be hilarious to see where the hell they put it to. Like, you can download it from the website.
I always would wonder too. So obviously, just to make this clear, it's not that X-Hamster would be filming this. It's basically they're producing it, because from what they say, the Wachowskis have already created the season. It's just Netflix isn't going to show it, which, to me, I have to check into that, because I didn't have enough time to really see what the status of that is. And considering that they said that they were going to do a 2-hour wrap up, I assume that they're not. I just don't understand why Netflix would actually have that content and not put it out. Because I can understand on television, it's different, because you have advertiser slots and, primetime slots that you can fit other shows in. Or you can bury it on a bad time slot and have it disappear. But again, it's about ad revenue. With Netflix, it's about views. It's about staying with the subscription. But once you buy a subscription, the idea is to have more content. If they created it, why not purchase the content? Unless they just figure whatever they pay for that third season is less than they would get in, I guess, subscriptions that won't be canceled because Sense8 is gone. I don't know. I admit it's interesting. But the other thing I was thinking about is, so imagine if you had a really good show on Pornhub. It's not a porn show, though, or let's say our X-Hamster, but then it's up for an Oscar. Do you think that even if the show has nothing sexually explicit in it, will the Academy snub it because of where it's located? Because that's one thing. Porn has always been like that dark area where everyone wants to pretend it's not there. And if you've done porn, they want to shun you in Hollywood. So I'm kind of curious.
True. Make a good point. Yeah. That's like a tough one to kind of like, Yeah, because it rolls back to, if you think about, like, when we did the story of the, was it like the YouPorn team?
Oh, the gaming team, yeah.
The gaming team, where it was like, I didn't want to let them in because, like, oh, look who's backing them up. And it was like, dude, we're just putting the money in for the team. Like, that's all that they had to do with it. And they started their whole, like, no, we can't have none of that, But it's crazy as how, like, just see how, like, just the reaction of people's things for it.
So, in the number 3 story, one of the things I've always been curious about is, like, the adult games. And it doesn't have to always be, like, the super, super, super adult. Like, it's not like as soon as you turn the game on, there's graphic sex, even though, they obviously have that. I'm talking about the games where it'll have a storyline. They'll put time into it, creation into it, concept into it, but it just has adult themes or has an adult section to it. And it's funny because I knew this was going to happen. I actually lost my ear. Unfortunately, before this started, the battery in my headset was already dying, and I thought that the battery that I had to replace it was going to last long enough. But it wasn't actually charging in the little charging thing, so I knew that it was going to eventually go out, and I would have to do a switch on air. But being a professional, I can do that seamlessly, so it's no problem. I'm just that good.
I thought it just I was like, I knew as soon as you said that. There we go.
But as I was saying, so I like it that you have all these games that come out, and like I said, the closer they get to mainstream or bridge between mainstream and adult, you have places like Steam that don't know what to do. It's the same thing as far as phone games, because these, you can't get them off of the App Store. Like, they won't put a game that has really adult themes on it. You can suggest it, but once you're actually showing bare breasts or penises or things like that, they cut it off. So what happens is you usually have to go to these websites and you have to get the games from there and install them using the APK. Of course, there could be risks because you don't know if it's going to be a virus or things like that. But believe it or not, there are sites that do these adult games that are reputable that you can download these games and play them. And honestly, a lot of these games are making a lot of money because they're not cheaply done. They're actually well done games, and there's definitely a market for it, just like there's a market for our Clickbait Countdown. So this game is called Booty Calls, and I just thought it was great. You can get on the Android, and it basically, the idea of the game is to go out and you're trying to help like this princess. So in this case, it's help mermaid princess, how is that pronounced? Andorella, fulfill her task by getting it on with the hottest chicks of Naughty Beach. So it says here about Booty Calls. Below the surface of the ocean, the curious mermaid princess desperately wants to see the world beyond the surface. Her wish finally comes true after meeting a mermaid witch who agrees on helping her under one condition. She must supply her with a unique ingredient that can only be obtained by sexy human girls. So this princess is with you, and you must help her get the special ingredient by banging all the sexy chicks at Naughty Beach. Discover all the locations, get in touch with hot girls, and show them that you are the master of booty calls. I mean, man, is there any wonder, why this is doing well? So it's funny because it's a puzzle game. So some of the key game features is you get to meet different girls with unique personalities. Meeting the girls might be easy, but to successfully bang them, you need to find out what they desire. This is just like real life, guys. You can't just walk up to a chick. I see a lot of you guys. A friend of mine, she sent me messages of like what she gets on OkCupid. Man, some of you guys, your game is want to have sex, and it's like, no. At least talk to her, find out what she likes. And these games might help you with that. It helps you learn what the girls like, and then maybe, just maybe, she'll consent to you having sex. So it's a puzzle mechanic game. It says complete dates and sex with girls with a fun, unique, addictive puzzle mechanic. You receive messages from girls, if your girls are hooked, they'll send you hot pictures. So this is also a good way to like have like a fake date. Because like once you woo these girls, like they have pictures here where they'll be like in suggestive poses wearing bikinis and things like that. And of course, since this is an adult game, it has nudity as well. So I haven't actually played it yet, but just because I really care about bringing you guys the best and most informative data, I will bring you guys video on it.
All I can say is just be careful. It ain't a virus. It is on an Android after all.
Well, that's the thing. I have my old phone, my old not Windows phone, my old
Android.
Android phone, and it's like, hey, you know what? That's a perfect little thing to use when I'm not so sure about games or programs. I'll put it on there first, play it, and then if it's good, then it can go on the.
If it blows up the phone, oh, no harm, no foul.
Yeah, if it blows it up, no problem. Now, I just want to ask you: have you ever played an adult game that you actually said to yourself, wow, I can't believe how much time and quality they put into this? Because we've all seen really cheap games going back to the Atari. But, I mean, people nowadays have put really some good work into these adult games.
Yeah, I think the only game I ever played was like the Leisure Suit Larry series.
Really? That's it?
Yeah, that's it.
I got to open your eyes like you did me with
the Pokemon.
Yeah, with the Pokemon. With the Strokomon.
I'll never forget the look on your face when you pulled up the thing. Just and that shock and awe of the like, what am I looking at? And I was like, yep, that's exactly what.
I can't unsee that.
You cannot unsee that.
Once you see, you can't unsee.
Y'all out there, like seriously, if you guys don't know, look it up. Like you look it on an old our old episode of You Don't Get the Show, but we are telling you, once you see it, you can unsee it. It's burned into the back of your retinas, and it'll give you nightmares. Nightmares. I don't know what y'all say.
Yes, it will.
I mean, good idea in theory, on paper, I'm sure it sounded great. Hey, let's do this. It's popular,
but the makeup artist needs to be fired.
Oh man, when they put that on film, I don't know how somebody's like, yeah, we should put this out.
This looks good. Let's go with it.
It's good enough.
All right, so our number 2 story. So we did this on You Don't Get the Show. We did a whole show about how they were saying that gamers are better at sex than non-gamers. The thing was that most of those studies were, they're kind of scientific, but it was a while ago. It was done mostly in the UK, things like that. And it was mostly just like sending people like surveys and things like that. Now, this is the newest one. This just came out a couple of months ago. And it was actually done by the Journal of Sexual Medicine, which is a thing, by the way. It's actual doctors, scientists that study sex. And they basically said that video game players are better in bed. Now, we already know about some of the bad effects, like you could gain weight, lower sexual libido, things like that. And this too was done outside the US. It was done in Rome. But they said that your ability to slay virtual dragons and save the world from the robot apocalypse may also make you last longer in bed. The first thing I thought, when I was watching this, because they do talk about sexual stamina a lot, which seems to be the joke about like how long you could go. But I always thought that it's about the quality, not how long. But apparently you have to have it all. You have to have the quality, the quantity, and everything. But this was, like I said, published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine, where cross-sectional said to 396 men that basically the ones who played these video games, they performed better in bed. Like they said that there's a relation between gaming and sexual stamina, and that gamers were less likely to suffer from premature ejaculation than non-gamers. Now, that's the part which, you see, that's important because they always make that joke that gamers can't find girls, right? And then if you do find a girl, since you haven't had sex before, that you're going to be like, a 2-pump chump, as they call it. But of course they said, though, and they always has to be a caveat. They said, don't go running off to buy an Xbox just yet. The study also found that gamers have less sexual desire than non-gamers. But here's one of the things. When we did the previous You Don't Get the Show about this, you did see that said a lot, that a lot of people have lower sex drive, lower libido, all that stuff. But the funny thing here is that they go a little bit beyond that, because they said that the fact that some of these gamers have a lower sex drive could be part of the reason why that they're able to have higher libido in the end. I mean, they'll have lower libido, but they'll be able to have greater control. So I said another theory is that gamers exhibit a generally high level of dopamine more than non-gamers, and that allows them greater control of their ejaculatory reflex, but lower libido. So they have better control because of the lower libido, which I guess can make sense. It's like if you're not always just sex driven and you're there having fun playing video games, then your girl comes over and is like, hey, let's have sex. It's almost like a video game. And maybe since you know how they always say, think about baseball to last longer. You're probably already thinking about getting back to the video game you're playing while you're having sex, which probably makes you last longer. I mean, I haven't done a study myself, but that's what I would say.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember when we did that kind of like study thing where we looked it up, was funny, and it was like, oh, like that was the thing that was funny about it, that those guys like went into like that deep, like broke everything down. Boop, 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 boop. It was like, okay, like I guess there is more to this than not,
It's already, you're married and you're a gamer. Is this true?
I mean, come on now. I still on the regular, so that's the whole thing. I'm like, hey, you gotta do that. Like, that's not gonna stop. It doesn't matter.
He's like, look, everything's good here. I'm good in game. I'm good in bed. I'm good everywhere.
We ain't got no problems.
I get high scores everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. I'm getting the extra lives. It's funny as hell. Like one of the things that I laugh at some of these things where it goes to show you in the science world, researchers will throw money at just about anything. You know, it's like, I'm in a lab today. Let's see, what can we pick out of thin air and see if we can study it and come out true or not. Oh, let's say like clouds in the sky scare people to think that they're actually gods. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. We'll research it.
And they get funding too. That's the
crazy thing. Yeah. Like, I can understand funding, like, oh, we want to see what the effects of these drugs will have on these people, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, that's a good thing. But, like, shit like, are people scared of planes? Let's do a research study on this. Like, how the fuck you get money for that? Like, meanwhile, we're over here struggling to pay our bills.
No, it'll be even crazier. It'll be like, are people scared on planes if the weather is hot outside and they drank a coffee before they got on the plane? And you're like,
yeah, it's like, what?
Why do I need to know that?
It was like, man, you know, there's something that we got to look into, like our priorities in life here.
Yeah, I should have went into science. All right. So, our number one story, which in this case, even though I said that we didn't rate this in craziness, our number one story is our number one story, and it doesn't even really have to do with gaming. It's just someone sent this to me. And this is just one of those things where everyone has been sent something in their lives and they looked at it and they're just like, oh my God. So in this case, and Randy's much better at Spanish than I am. So
and it took me a couple of times of watching the video before it was like, wait a minute, it all made sense.
Right. And we'll have the video here. But basically what this is death by anal sex. And when you're watching the video, when you first turn it on and you're watching it, it's basically one of those like court shows, but this is in Spanish. And it's one of those court shows where, you know, you have the plaintiff, you have the defendant, and it's usually about, oh, this person broke something, this person didn't pay back something like that. Well, in this case, this has to do with someone's husband having sex and died of anal sex. So I guess, Randy, I'll throw this to you. When you first watched this, because when I first just sent it to you, what was the first thing that was kind of confusing?
So here's the thing. So it is like a thing like that, like you said, a woman that brought this other woman on saying that, hey, it's her fault that my husband died. And the judge essentially goes to her and says, okay, tell me the story. So the woman starts by telling the story how the man started sleeping with her and started having anal sex with her, and that it was like a whole new thing for him and that he really enjoyed it and blah, blah, blah. The thing where it got to me was when the story says, so he wanted to try a different fantasy where he wanted me to give him anal sex, which I was sitting there going, okay, nothing in this and that. So what ends up happening, she's going through the story. She's like, yep, I'm having anal sex with him. He sits there and has like these convulsions and all that. Boom, drops, no reaction from him whatsoever and this and that. And he literally died. So, of course, the judge is like, well, if that were the case, why didn't you leave the room and all? She's like, number one, I was completely terrified at what happened. She's like, number two, I couldn't. And that's where the judge kind of leans down and goes, what do you mean by you couldn't? And she's like, because when he died, he clenched up his butt cheeks and I couldn't get out. And that's where, for me, I was like, well, wait a minute. Like,
yeah. Now you're like, wait, what?
It's like, wait, so if she's like giving him anal sex with like a strap on, like all she's got to do is just unclip the son of a bitch and you're free. And that's when it like dawned on me. I'm like, oh, she wasn't using a strap on. No. She's actually a dude.
She wasn't using a strap on. She was using what is strapped on.
Strapped on, yeah. And that's when it like, ding, the light went off. I'm like, oh, that's a dude.
Now, here's the thing. This is, I don't want anyone to get it twisted. This isn't making fun of transsexuals. What this is that it's long time ago, someone sent, this is like an old, well, this is even before they were calling things memes. But someone sent this thing and it's like, can you tell who is a transsexual, who's not? And it was just simple. And really the point was to be that you can't just judge someone based on looks. That was really the point. Like people kind of took it like, oh, you're being homophobic and all that. And yeah, obviously some people took that and made it that way. But it was really, can you judge someone based on how they look? So they had, I think it was like 8 pictures, and it's like, click the ones that you think is a transsexual. And you would click on it, and so many people were completely wrong. And that's the same thing here. I mean, look, one thing about Spanish television that you gotta know is that like 90% of the women on there are just gorgeous, just drop dead gorgeous. Yeah. So when the person sent me this and it's like anal sex and they show this girl and you look at the picture, now that you know the story, you'll be like, oh, I knew and this and that. And she looks like, sure, right. I showed this to people. They're like, wow, man, that girl is hot. And then as you're watching it, you're still looking at her. And then at one point, she's like, he was biting the pillow and scratching the bed and things like that. And your mind starts to play with you. And you're like, wait, what is this going on? And just like with Randy, it was like, oh, well, I guess she's using some strap-on. It's like, wait, I was stuck. And then all of a sudden, you realize she's transsexual. And then everything changes. You're like, oh.
That was the thing that I literally had to rewind it a couple of times to like really listen to what she was saying, because it was like, wait, hold on, did she just like say what I think she just said, like type of a thing? And it was like once it like the light went off, it was like, oh, okay, now it's starting to really make sense, you know, what's going on here. And it was just fun. Like it's I mean, it's not hilarious, but it's like it's messed up because like this dude died in the middle of this, but it was just like, whoa, because the camera is it's panning so much between the lady and the judge that you almost forget the guy's wife is standing right there. Right. Because remember, the crazy thing about this whole story, it's not that she's a transsexual. It's not that the guy likes anal sex. It's that she is suing, okay? The lady is suing because of the experience that she had. So the lady over there on the other side of the picture is the guy's wife. And so she's not only there listening that her husband liked having anal sex and not only died because of this encounter, but now this lady's suing for damages because of that shit. So when you put it all in the package, that's a fucked up package. And the thing about it is, and it's what made me like keep rewinding the video, like every time they cut to the judge, the look on her face, she's like, hold up, I'm trying to understand what's going on here. And then they cut back to the transsexual woman, and she's describing everything. And they cut back to the judge, and you kind of see like her head tilted a little bit more, like, wait a minute, what am I listening to here? And then they go back to the transsexual, she's and they come back, and now it's even tilted even more, going, am I putting this together? You know? And that was the thing that I found was interesting, was like, and that's where I like I said, I had to rewind it back, because that was the thing. Like the judge sat there and was like, okay, why didn't you leave? And then at first she's like, because I was just like traumatized at what just happened. And then it cuts back to the judge where she's still kind of like, well, that still doesn't explain why you didn't leave. And then that's when it cuts back to her, and she's like, because I was stuck in him. And she's like, cuts back to the judge. She's like, so wait, when you mean you were stuck in him, it cuts back to the girl. She's like, I was stuck in him. Like he clenched up his butt cheeks and I was stuck. And that's when it cuts back to the judge, and you kind of see the look on her face go like, oh, like it just dawned on her too. And it's funny as hell, because that show specifically, like my wife and I will watch that, like they put it on every night here. And it's funny as hell because that show specifically, I kind of like tell my wife, I'm like, that is like the Spanish version of fucking Jerry Springer, if there ever were one, only it's an actual like, there are people going to court to get things worked out, you know? Yeah, that's the craziest thing, because on Spanish television, I mean, look, on American television too, you see that these court shows always have crazy stories, right? You know, Judge Judy, all of the like. And on Spanish television, there's been crazier. I mean, I've seen some clips where what they're suing or fighting over is insane. But you have to realize how insane this must be for this lady who's done tons of these shows and seen it all to be like, we need to take a break. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is, like, I've seen, like, you have some that are totally normal, like, oh, these people were married and they're getting a divorce and they're going to sit there and, like, they're trying to split apart everything type of a thing, to, like, the craziest one I heard was this, like, woman that married a guy, that the guy had a son. And the guy basically had, like, the guy had money. And he basically, like, wrote down, like, made a will that essentially, like, hey, like, my son gets a majority of my estate and blah 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 blah. And then, like, he kind of, like, you can tell, like, in a blurb type of a thing, but my wife gets a house, the house that she's living in. And then, like, you see these, like, messed up stories of how, like, the wife ended up, like, sending the kid off to some crazy, like, boarding school type of a thing, so that when the husband died, he wasn't around. And then it's like, cool, I'm going to take control of everything until the kid comes back. And then she, like, spends all the money, and then the kid comes back and it's like, well, your dad died, but there's nothing left for you. Like, all these really messed up stories. And when you sit there and you see, like, the craziest one, like, the guy basically, his estate was worth, I think it was something like $200,000. And she basically sent off the kid. The kid was supposed to get like 150,000 of the 200,000, and she was only supposed to get like 50,000. And literally, like, the husband ends up dying. She takes the 200,000, ends up remarrying, blows all the money on, like, stuff. And when the kid comes back, like, kind of like to it type of thing, he's like, but where's the money that my dad left me? And she kind of like, well, it's all gone now, so sorry, And it was this crazy thing where, like, the kid basically sued her. And when it came down to it, like, when you look at it, like, the judge basically just looked at the woman and said, okay, like, not for nothing, but you still have all that stuff. And she's like, yeah. And she's like, this is what you're going to do. She's like, you're going to sell off all that stuff till you get the 150,000 that his dad like promised him, and you're going to put it into an account in his name. And the woman, well, but it's going to be hard. She's like, I don't care what you got to do. It's going to happen. Whether that means it. And then, like, of course, the woman's like, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to survive? She's like, you'll figure it out. Like, and that's the thing about, like, those Spanish, like, judge shows. It ain't like Judge Judy or Judge Mathis where they're like, this is the ruling, boop, and then it's out. No. This judge, like, she's fucking, like, she lays the law down. Like, you'll figure it out somehow, or you're going to be living under a bridge. Have a nice day. Like, they don't fuck around when it comes to that. But there are those, like, weird ass, like, you'll see those funny, like, weird, oh, like, I'm suing him. Like, the craziest one was the one where it was, like, this guy that was dating this girl, and she was, like, a model that wanted to, like, get big and blah blah blah. So she was taking, like, these photos, but then at the same time she ended up, like, doing these, like, kind of more racy photos that where she was, like, half naked and almost, like, completely naked, and they broke up. And he, like, was basically the one that was like, I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna get these photos out there. And literally this dude fucking put up a, like, because mind you, she was doing this more as like a side job type of a thing. This dude with his money, when she left his ass because she realized, A, this dude is not good for me, and B, he ain't doing what I need him to do, literally bought a fucking billboard along a highway that led into town, which is most people when they were, like, going into work would see, and put one of these, like, naked photos of her up on the billboard. So she's suing his ass like, yo, I lost my job because of this shit and all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. And what the hell are you doing? And his defense was like, well, she paid me to get her photos out there and people to see them. So I put them out there so people could see them. And that judge just looked at her like, well, you kind of did the naked ones without her consent. Like, I understand if it would have been one of her, like, headshot type of a thing. But you went a little far, you know? Like, it was funny as hell to see that shit.
Moral of the story, people are scumbags.
Oh, yeah, dude. And I was just like, and it was funny because, like, the judge is kind of like, are you sure you kind of, like, not did this as, like, to spite her and blah, 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 and get back at her? And the guy's like, absolutely not. And she's like, I'm pretty sure you did. Because any normal person would have like looked through which photos of her would have confirmed with her, hey, is this one cool? And then done this, not just bought the billboard and put up a naked photo of hers.
See, this is why you don't send photos. You don't even trade naked photos with somebody, because you do that, we're gonna be together forever, shit. And it's like, yeah, maybe you won't be together forever, but those pictures on his phone will.
Oh, dude, that's the whole like the old classic. Like that's why you never tattoo a person's name onto your body. Because the moment you do that, that shit's over.
And you ever know? See, that's why guys, you ever notice why guys will just send a picture of like their penis and there's no context? Because like, let's say their penis isn't that big or anything, and they don't care because you're in love, so it doesn't matter. So you break up, and then she decides, hey, I'm gonna put up this picture and say this is his penis. As long as there isn't any tattoo or it is his penis, and then next to it is like a book that has like a label with his name on it or some mail on the floor, he can deny it. It's like, that ain't me. She got that shit off the internet. But if you just take a full body shot, like, hello,
picture of you just holding the phone up, all like,
then it's hard to deny that shit. You can say Photoshop, but you're probably still going to get in trouble and losing your job too. Yeah, I'll tell you, jobs, they go scour the internet looking for shit like that. So be careful.
Oh, man.
But yes, that was our top 4 for Clickbait Countdown number 2. I know you guys are dying for more. But here's the thing.
Really only number 2?
Yeah, only number 2. We have lots of like clips and stuff, but as far as full shows, only number 2. But here's the thing. So obviously we go out and we look for funny stories, but things are sent to us too. So if you have a story that you've seen somewhere and you want us to talk about it, make fun of it, whatever, send it to us, because that's the thing. We like to hear from you. We want comments. We want subscribers. We want likes. We want all that stuff. But honestly, besides subscribers, because YouTube requires that stuff, we like to hear like what you think would be cool for the show. So if you got something that should be on Clickbait Countdown, send it to us, and we'll get it up on one of our future shows. And we're going to give you credit for it. And we actually do get some cool stuff from time to time. Being from Obsolete Gamer, we get a lot of like access to games or free this and free that. So we'll even do like this. If you submit something and we end up using on the show, we'll send you something. Man, it's not going to be great. It's not going to be an Xbox or something, but maybe it'll be, early access or beta codes or a free game or something like that. So a little incentive for you people out there.
Hey, wait, what do I get if I do it?
You're nothing. See, that's the problem. You're one of the hosts. You get nothing.
We should be the first ones to get beta codes and accesses and all that stuff.
But we do thank you guys for watching, and for those on the podcast for listening. But honestly, for shows like Clickbait Countdown, it works much better if you can see this than listen to it. But either way, thank you guys very much. But until next time, I am Jay LaRock. He's Randy.
Peace.
He's out.